So, I don't know all of you, so I'll say, my name is Oscar, I'm a senior, and this is my senior speech. So, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be talking about, like, the past couple of years and my walk with God, and basically what's happened to me during college, and what I've learned, and hopefully you guys get something out of it, and hopefully I get something out of it, and it's like a good experience. Okay, so that's my introduction slide. So first I'm going to talk a little bit about myself. So I was born in Rhode Island. And I'm here at WPI studying math and computer science. So I think 7th grade was when I started really liking math. I liked it like a lot, and I still do. It's pretty great. And then when I came here, I just picked up computer science. But now I really like it. But I didn't really like it at the time, but now I do. And when I graduate, I hope to do something related to software security. So that's kind of like my job prospects right now. And I also enjoy playing like card games and board games, occasionally Smash. I'll probably be doing one of those things after this. Yeah. So this is my family. On the left is my mom and dad, and on my right is my sister. So my dad is a police officer. My whole life he's kind of been like a role model to me. I know that's like cliche, but it's true. He's always, I don't know, like taught me what's right pretty much, and he's always been there for me and just been a good influence overall and disciplined me when he had to. He's a really good father. And next to him is my mother. She is a nurse. She is also a very nice person, and I love her very much. And on the right is my sister. And she is currently a freshman in college. She's studying physical therapy. And she's at the University of Tampa. So, first thing I'm going to talk about, I guess, is how I became saved. That is probably like the biggest day in my walk with God. So, what happened was it was like last year, in A term, my junior year. And I was walking towards the library, and I was like in between Salisbury and Washburn, so like I was like right there. Yeah, and I got a text message from Ryan Cantalupo. He's here today, I think. Yeah, he's over there. Yeah, and he texted me asking me if I wanted to go to Revival Prayer. And for those of you guys that don't know what that is, it's basically a time where a bunch of us get together and we pray for revival on campus. Back then, it took like about an hour, and I don't know, it was pretty time consuming, and I just didn't feel like going. I thought it would kind of be a drag. That's kind of that's like the kind of attitude I had towards a lot of the things I did back then, like going to church and like going to FNF. I didn't really go because I wanted to do it for God. I went because I wanted to do it for me. And when I realized that, I realized how closed my heart was to God, and in that moment, like my heart opened like just a little tiny bit, like no bigger than like a crack on the wall. But that was more than enough for God because He saw that, and He basically filled my heart with His Spirit, and it was probably the most powerful moment that like I've experienced God so far. And it's crazy because if I saw somebody, right, and they were being like that, like if I looked at myself from back then and I was like, oh, he's only being that open, like that's not that much. Like, come on, I can't do anything with that. But God was like, whoa, he's being that open, so I'm gonna do something with that, and He saved me. After that, I found God, right? So like now what? Like I had to learn what it meant to be a good Christian, right? So I started to like read the Bible and learn more about God. And I started to surround myself with you guys and try to get closer to Him. So next I'm going to talk a little bit about my topic and why I chose love. So the reason I chose love is not because it's Valentine's Day weekend, but it's because ever since I've been saved, this is probably the area which my life is most improved, and it is definitely the area which has made me most happy. Before I was saved, my view on love was very wrong. I mean, I didn't have God, so like if you think about it, I was just an average guy before. I didn't think about it like all the time. Like, why would I think about, what does it mean to love? I thought I was loving the right way, but apparently I wasn't. And it ended up with me being very lonely. So I was just so lonely to the point of almost depression. And like, there were days where I would just cry from like 2 to 6 p.m. or something. So I was doing love very wrong, and I was not happy. But after I was saved, I had God. So like, whoa, that's going to be like a huge difference, right? Like, I had the Lord, and He taught me how to love somebody properly, how to deepen my relationship with people, and how to be intentional with my relationships. And after that happened, I became way happier. So that's definitely like why I chose this topic, because it's had the biggest impact on me so far. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my life before I was saved. I absolutely, completely did not know what love was. I didn't really think about it. Like I said, I was just a normal guy. I'm not a philosopher. I'm not very knowledgeable about things. I probably thought what normal people think about love, and it was pretty much that I thought it was something spontaneous and something that just kind of happens, something that you don't work for. And I know that sounds wrong, but it is wrong. But I didn't have God at the time, so what else was I supposed to think? I just watched movies and stuff like. So I also, it's interesting, right? Because I was surrounded by friends. I actually had a decent amount of friends that I would call close, like people that I would tell my problems, and people that told me their problems. And I even had a girlfriend too. But the problem was, I just didn't love them properly. So it was kind of confusing for me at the time. Like, why was I so lonely? Like, why is everybody else so much more happy? I didn't even know if they were happy, but they seemed happier. So, yeah, that was my life before. After I became saved, God saw what was happening in my life, and He said, okay, you're doing this really wrong. I need to teach you a few things. And He did. He taught me, these are some of the things He taught me. The first one is that love is not dependent on feelings or emotion. So love is something that often feelings can even get in the way of it. So it's something that depends on something else. Love builds a moral character. So basically, since love builds a moral character, it's something that I need to be more active with. It's something that I need to think about, not just treat it like whatever. And then love is not something secondary. So this is something where, I would be in a situation where I could love, but I deliberately choose not to because, I don't know, it's easier. Like, I don't really have to put into any effort into not loving someone. So the third thing He taught me was, no, love is very important. And I'm going to talk about each of these three things in a lot more detail. The first one I'm going to talk about is that love does not depend on feelings. And a verse that I found, which a lot of you guys probably know, is 1 Corinthians 13, 4 through 7. Love suffers long and is kind. Love does not envy. Love does not parade itself, is not puffed up, does not behave rudely. Love does not seek its own, is not provoked, thinks no evil, does not rejoice in iniquity, but rejoices in the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. So the first thing I notice about this verse is that it doesn't use the word feelings at all, anywhere. It's all about actions. It says love does this, it does this, it does this. It doesn't say, like, love is when you feel nice about somebody. And the second thing I noticed was that a lot of these are all the negation of some kind of evil. So kindness is a positive thing, but the rest of them, love does not envy, love does not parade itself, is not puffed up, does not behave rudely, does not seek its own, is not provoked, thinks no evil. And this made me think that, there's a lot of situations where I'm, in a relationship with someone, and I don't feel like showing them respect. I don't feel like showing them honesty, or I don't even feel like trusting them, just because it's hard. So often feelings actually get in the way of love. It's not something that is love. It's something that can be definitely inconsistent with the biblical definition. So this taught me not to let my feelings to get in the way, but to complement it, to have the right feelings that I should have. And then there was this quote by C.S. Lewis, which I thought was pretty cool. The great thing to consider is that though our feelings come and go, his love for us does not. So if we have God kind of love, that'll never leave, unlike feelings, which are kind of unreliable. So the next thing I learned was that love builds a moral character. So to reiterate what I said on the last slide, you need work and effort to kind of overcome the selfish feelings that you have. And that requires a moral character. So I used to think, like I said already, that love was spontaneous and easy. Something that if I was in a relationship for long enough, it would eventually pop up. I don't really have control over it, but that's what happens when two people spend a lot of time together, right? They love each other. Well, that's not the case. That's why I was very bad at it. It takes work. And it takes a moral character. It takes somebody who knows how to act and treat people properly. And this taught me to be more active and intentional with my love. The next thing is that love is very important. And I found 3 verses that show how important love is to God and how important it should be to us. The first one is the Great Commandment. And then there's a verse in Luke that talks about reward. And then there's a verse in John which talks about love being necessary to actually know God. So this is the Great Commandment. Jesus replied, "Love the Lord your God with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment, and the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these 2 commandments." So, one of the coolest things about this is the last one, or the last verse. Love your all the law and the prophets hang on these 2 commandments. So this means that if you properly love, if you love perfectly, you will fulfill the old covenant law, which is very cool. You will be perfect and righteous in God's eyes if you love perfectly, which is impossible for us. But if you did that, then you would fulfill the law. And that's really cool. That just shows how powerful love is. It shows that it's something that it's a virtue that's definitely worth having. Another thing that's pretty great about this is that this is a commandment. It is something that we must do. So a lot of the time, whenever I'm interacting with just anybody, it's really hard to just, like a stranger, for example, it's really hard to just love them. It's even more hard when you have somebody that you know that you're kind of like in an awkward situation with. It's also very hard to show them love. But God commands us to love them. It's not something that we have an option to do. Well, I mean, we have an option, but it's something that is still necessary. Like, we wouldn't look at the 10 Commandments and think, oh, I can do that and it'll be nice, but I don't have to do that, you know? Like, sometimes for love, I feel like it's easy for us to do. Like, I could, talk to somebody and I can treat them with love, but I could also just not do it. I feel like it's easier to do that, but this is the great commandment, greater than any other commandments. It's very important to do, and it's something that should not be ignored just because you're uncomfortable with loving someone, or just because it's harder. But yeah, it's important to God, so you should do it. The next verse is that you should love your enemies, do good to them, and lend to them without expecting to get anything back. Then your reward will be great, and you will be children of the Most High, because He is kind to the ungrateful and wicked. So this verse does 2 things. It says that love is difficult and requires more than feelings, which I said before. You're supposed to love your enemies and do good to them without expecting anything back. That's a whole lot different than loving people that that is easy to love. So it's telling us to love people that even if we're uncomfortable with loving them. And then the next one is that there is a reward for love. And the reward is that we will be children of the Most High. We will be put into God's family for loving. That is how much it matters to God. If we love other people, we can be in his family. That's, I don't know, that's just mind-blowing. That makes it really important. There's like literally no greater honor for us than that. And then the next verse that I found of why love is important is 1 John 4:8. Whoever does not love does not know God, because God is love. So this verse is pretty short, but it spoke to me a lot. It told me that if I'm in a situation where I deliberately choose not to love somebody, that is the same as ignoring what God is telling me to do, because God is love. So if I'm taking the no love route, I'm taking the route that says I'm not going to listen to God. And so if I'm ignoring someone or being impatient with them or being rude, and these are all easy things to do. I still do them. I do them. I probably did it today. But like, when I do those things, it's something that makes me ignore God. And that is not okay. I don't want a distant God. I don't want to create distance between me and God and put him in a corner just because I don't have a good relationship with somebody, or because I don't know somebody and it's easier not to love them. So these are the 3 ways that I've cared for people. I don't rely on my feelings, but I rely on God, because the feelings are unreliable, and often they can even steer you away from what love really is. I also learned to be more active and intentional with my love, because love isn't easy sometimes, so you need to work at it, and it's kind of like a moral character where you need to show people that you're loving them. And the manifestation of love is not the feelings, it's the works that you do for the other people. And then I realized that my love for people is important. It is one of the most important things. Like, in the Bible, 1 Corinthians 13:13, it says there's faith, hope, and love, and then the greatest of these is love. So the most important thing, like, God places a value on love that is more important than any other virtue in the Bible. And it should be important to us. And I also want to show you guys this verse, John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but shall have eternal life. So God gave up his Son just so that we could understand what real love is. And that, like, come on, that's like the greatest thing like I've ever heard. And he didn't do it because he felt nice feelings towards us. Like, right? Think about it. Like, Jesus was on the cross. He was broken bones. He was blood all over. And he knew us. He knew the things we were going to do. He knew that we were going to sin. He knew that we were going to deny him, that we weren't going to love him at times. And he still did it. He did it for one reason, so that we would not perish, but have eternal life. So if you ever forget what it means to love, you should remember this verse. And that's my speech.